The gunshot came at 2:17 a.m., and everyone in the emergency room froze except the nurse standing directly beneath the fluorescent lights. A man had been rushed through the trauma doors, blood covering his shirt, panic spreading across the room as monitors screamed and doctors shouted instructions. Then the wounded man's eyes opened for half a second, and the nurse looked directly into them. She didn't flinch. She didn't gasp. She simply tightened her gloves and went to work as if she had seen worse. Nobody asked why. Nobody knew that the reason she never flinched was buried beneath years of memories she had spent her life trying to forget. If you believe people deserve kindness, second chances, and the opportunity to rebuild their lives after unimaginable hardship, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Sometimes the quietest people are carrying the heaviest stories. Her name was Rebecca Hayes, a 34-year-old ER nurse at St. Vincent Medical Center in Nashville, Tennessee. To most of her coworkers, Rebecca was simply dependable. She arrived early, stayed late, remembered patients' names, and somehow remained calm when everyone else was overwhelmed. She had shoulder-length chestnut brown hair usually tied into a practical ponytail, clear green eyes, and a gentle expression that made frightened patients feel safe. But there was one strange thing everyone noticed. Rebecca never flinched. Not when a monitor suddenly screamed. Not when a patient arrived covered in blood. Not when someone slammed a metal tray onto the floor. Not even when fireworks exploded outside the hospital on the 4th of July. Some nurses joked that she had nerves made of steel. Others assumed she had simply become numb to emergencies. Rebecca never corrected them. That night, the trauma team received a call about a critically injured man brought in from a highway outside Nashville. The paramedics said he had been found near an abandoned vehicle after what appeared to be a violent roadside incident. He was unconscious, suffering from multiple injuries, and carrying no identification except a military-style identification card with the name Gabriel Mercer. The moment Rebecca saw him, something inside her went cold. Not because of the blood. Not because of the injuries. It was his eyes. They were gray-blue, sharp despite the pain, and for one brief second they locked onto hers with the unmistakable awareness of someone trained to read danger before danger arrived. Rebecca knew those eyes. She immediately pushed the thought away and continued treating him. She checked his airway, helped stabilize his breathing, assisted the physician with the trauma assessment, and carefully monitored his vital signs. The room became a blur of movement. Nurses passed instruments. Doctors issued orders. Machines beeped relentlessly. Rebecca remained perfectly steady. Then Gabriel whispered something only she could hear. He said her first name. Rebecca stopped for less than a second. No one else noticed. Gabriel Mercer was a Delta Force operator. And years earlier, before Rebecca had become an ER nurse, she had been someone entirely different. She had once worked as a combat medic attached to a specialized military unit overseas. Her name had been Rebecca Hayes then too, but almost everything else about her life had changed. She had seen men carried from vehicles that never made it home. She had learned how to stop bleeding with shaking hands and how to keep breathing while explosions turned the world into dust. She had saved lives and lost people she loved. But one mission had changed everything. During that operation, Rebecca had stayed behind after her team was ordered to evacuate. 3 wounded soldiers were trapped inside a damaged structure, and she refused to leave them. She treated them one by one until rescue arrived. Gabriel Mercer had been the young operator who found her inside that building. He remembered her eyes. Rebecca had never forgotten his. After that mission, Rebecca left the military. She never explained why. She returned to Tennessee, trained as a civilian nurse, and built a quiet life around helping strangers. She believed that if she could spend enough years saving people in ordinary hospital rooms, perhaps the memories of those terrible nights would finally become quiet. But Gabriel's arrival proved they had never disappeared. As doctors worked to stabilize him, Gabriel remained barely conscious. Rebecca stayed close because she understood what his condition meant. Someone had hurt him badly, and someone might still be looking for him. She quietly alerted hospital security without revealing their history. Several minutes later, a tall man wearing a dark jacket entered the emergency department. He wasn't wearing a uniform, but the way he scanned the room told Rebecca immediately that he was military. His name was Michael Donovan, one of Gabriel's teammates. He looked at Gabriel, then at Rebecca, and suddenly his expression changed. He recognized her. Rebecca quietly shook her head, silently asking him not to say anything. Michael understood. Gabriel eventually stabilized enough to undergo emergency surgery. Rebecca watched the operating room doors close, feeling memories she had buried for years pushing back toward the surface. She remembered the night she had first met Gabriel. She remembered him kneeling beside a wounded soldier and telling her that nobody was being left behind. She remembered believing him. And now, years later, he had returned to her hospital on the worst night of his life. Hours passed. When Gabriel finally woke in the intensive care unit, Rebecca was standing near the doorway. His eyes opened slowly. He looked at her for several seconds before whispering that she still had the same eyes. Rebecca smiled faintly and told him that some things were harder to change than others. Gabriel then revealed why he had recognized her immediately. During the mission years ago, Rebecca had saved his life without knowing it. He had been badly wounded, but she had refused to leave him. She had stayed beside him until the evacuation helicopter arrived. After she disappeared from military service, Gabriel had spent years wondering what had happened to the medic who had taught him that courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about staying when every part of you wanted to run. Rebecca finally admitted the truth she had hidden from everyone at the hospital. She hadn't stopped flinching because she was fearless. She had stopped because there had been a time when flinching meant losing precious seconds. She had trained herself to remain calm because other people's lives depended on it. But after leaving the military, she had discovered that the hardest battle wasn't surviving danger. It was learning how to live after danger was gone. Gabriel reached for her hand. He told her that she had saved him twice. The first time, she had saved his life. The second time, simply by being there, she had reminded him that people could survive what happened to them and still become something good. Rebecca's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to cry in front of someone who understood exactly why. Weeks later, Gabriel returned to the hospital walking slowly with a cane. Rebecca was working at the nurse's station when she saw him. He handed her a small folded photograph. It was an old picture of their military medical team taken years before everything had changed. Rebecca stared at it silently. Then she smiled. She finally understood that the past did not have to be a prison. Sometimes it could become proof of how far a person had traveled. Rebecca never stopped being the nurse who remained calm when everyone else panicked. But something changed after Gabriel left. She started allowing herself to laugh more. She started accepting invitations from coworkers. She started visiting places she had avoided for years. And whenever a frightened patient asked whether they were going to be okay, Rebecca no longer answered with the practiced certainty of someone hiding pain. She answered with something more honest. She told them that being afraid didn't make them weak. It simply meant they were human. If this story touched your heart, please like the video, share it with someone who needs a reminder that their past does not define their future, and subscribe for more emotional stories about courage, kindness, and second chances. And before we end, I have one special request. Comment courage below if you believe that even the strongest people sometimes need someone to remind them that they are not alone. Because Rebecca Hayes never stopped saving lives. She simply learned that, sometimes, the person who needs saving is the one standing quietly beside everyone else. And sometimes, all it takes is one person recognizing your eyes to remind you who you were before the world convinced you to forget.